I think you put your finger on with the word disconnect. I grew up in an era when we recognized that what the government did was an extension of the collective will of the citizens who made decisions for their future. And we saw, and I grew up, my mom raised me with the stories of, because she was raised in the States, of FDR and the New Deal, the idea that government could operate for good and do good things as an extension of our collective will to do good things for each other. And was brought home to me very forcefully when my dad, who was British, and we were fighting. We were in Nova Scotia, where I grew up, fighting against. I think it was at that point their plans to develop oil and gas just off the coast in the Gulf of St. Lawrence, and it had been over some time because my dad was quite getting quite on in years, so he was certainly in his late 70s when he said to me. You know, he said, I think I really preferred the Second World War. And it was a shocker because he grew up in London during the Blitz. I mean, he was losing friends fairly routinely. And I said, "You really?" And he said, "Well," he said, "Well, you know, in those days, we really felt the government was on our side." And well, so now the current group of kids, the generation that's grown up since the Reagan, Thatcher, neoliberalism mania caught hold, don't feel connected to their government. They see government as something alien, not part of a force for good, not an extension of us, but we are described increasingly as consumers and not citizens, and the government is this sort of alien thing, and that's where you get a lot of younger people who think, well, I'm not interested in politics, and I'm not interested in... But so getting back to it's ours. This is an extension of us as a society making decisions about our future, and therefore when you understand that, you realize, okay, so the decisions that government has made, for instance, to create a whole series of policies, fiscal, and legislative and regulatory, that favor the bitumen out of the oil sands over wind power, low-scale hydro, geothermal. I mean, it's not an accident that the bitumen is the focus of political discourse in Canada right now. There's a whole series of government policies that created an industry where none would have existed had they been relying on market forces. Nothing would have. So that's why we have to seize it back and say, wait a minute, these are decisions you're making on our behalf, and they're wrong. And we'd like the decisions that actually create the future we want. But that takes reconnecting to the government, that is ours, which means reconnecting to our own sense of personal power in a democracy to change the course of what the government, which is ours, is doing.
And we pay for it.
Yes, we sure do.
Them to do this stuff.
Yeah.
To us.
Yeah.
This is kind of crazy.
It is kind of crazy.
Divestment is a very important tool that we have at our disposal to be able to influence the economy. And there's been many examples of how successful this has been. In the forest industry is a good example. Many of the clear cuts that were such an issue were stopped as a result of divestment. And there are some very sophisticated organizations now that are working on this specifically as it relates to the tar sands. And I suggest that you have a look at what these groups are up to. And there's almost a little roadmap there for individuals and what you can do with your money and how you can make an impact with the way that you spend your money and invest.
Because 350.org has a fantastic campaign for divestment of university investments off fossil fuels. So 350.org has a great divestment campaign. I think one of the great successes of divestment too was in the campaign against apartheid. And I think that's where Bill McKibben drew a lot of his inspiration for making it more of a moral campaign. And there are ethical investment funds so that you can make sure your own personal RSPs, speaking of other things you can do personally, you can go in to see, if you have investments, go in to see your investment broker and say, look, I want to make sure that none of my retirement savings are invested in the oil sands or fossil fuels. You can be very specific about what you're willing to invest in and what you don't want to invest in. But the corporate divestment campaigns right now are focused on universities, and there's students who are working on this, and I think pretty much every campus across Canada, to call on the university administration to take its investment funds out of fossil fuels. The consumer society is a relatively new construct. We used to value things and buy things of value that would last a lifetime. Planned obsolescence is a deliberate marketing tool to ensure that we buy more stuff, drive more economic activity. And there's a great quote from the 1958 Journal of Retailing, I think it was that long ago, from a marketer named Victor Lebeau, who said, you know, we need to have more stuff, we need to buy more, waste more, see more things burned up, used up, thrown away at ever accelerating rate to drive our economy. So there was a very deliberate sort of literal Mad Men era effort to get us to shift our consciousness from waste not, want not, to shop till you drop. It's a very deliberate thing. And recognizing that, and it's really a clever lie to tell people, you'll be happy as soon as you have more stuff, because as soon as you have more stuff and you're not happy, well, it's because you didn't get enough stuff. You know, it doesn't disprove itself. So calling that out and saying, no, stuff isn't going to make you happy. Only you on the inside can make yourself happy by being grateful for what you have, by approaching things with a spirit of gratitude, a bit of meditative, reflective gratitude in all the things you do. And more sharing will make you happier than more hoarding. These are sort of basic things. We're in a good space to reflect on them, but these are basic things about human nature that don't get shared very much because they don't actually make more money for anyone. They just make people happier. So one of the things that we advocate in the Green Party is getting rid of the GDP as the only measurement of economic health of a society and put in place a genuine progress indicator which takes into account sense of well-being, health indicators, things like literacy. But there's a beautiful one, and many of you know of it, what I'm about to mention. In Bhutan, they have a happiness index. They measure the national happiness index. They have a minister of happiness. Yeah, what talk about it?
That's the best job ever.
So the consumer society is not just bad for the environment. It's extremely bad for who we are as a people and what we care about and what we believe in. It's really bad for adolescents. And it's the genuine happiness index and having a minister of happiness, and it may sound altogether flaky, but what's the purpose of a society? What's the purpose of an economy? Why are we here? It certainly isn't to generate profits for somebody else. It should be about community well-being. Yeah. And happiness has much more to do with community well-being than how much garbage we're stuck with, right? Or how much junk we brought home that broke the minute we opened it. Do you want to comment on Bhutan?
I love the Bhutan situation. And it's actually, I've always wanted to go there. I haven't had an opportunity, but we used to think about consumption as something people died from. And you know what? I think maybe we are. Anyway.
That's a lovely last night. I'm going to take that home with me.
Thank you.